Welcome back, Hand Axe and Satchel viewers. In today's video, we're going to be going over the difference between average reels, cheap reels, and expensive reels. Let's start off with average, and actually, first of all, welcome back, Hand Axe and Satchel viewers. You're going to love this video. So when you're looking for a reel, which is, in my opinion, is the most important part of your fishing setup, it's the part that the line comes off of and that you're going to be putting the most use on. First of all, you're going to want something that spins smoothly. If you don't get a smooth spin and if it sounds bad, like every time you use it, you're most likely not going to want to fish anyway with that, and that will drive you away from fishing, which isn't good because fishing is such a fun sport. Next, you're probably not going to want one that's plastic. You can see this plastic one. This one's actually by Shakespeare. It's a little plastic. It calls itself a 2500, but it's tiny plastic. I mean, it's not bad, but I would recommend getting a metal one. That's the base starter. Also, if you're wondering and looking at price tags, like there's some for like as cheap as like $12. I've used like a $5 fishing reel. The spin cast that you saw on the thumbnail of this video, that one I've used too. It is not very good. I would recommend, it's plastic again, so the line will get caught up in all those little plastic parts, and it'll be a lot harder than if you have just a few well-made metal parts that you have to undo. Also, if you're looking at, you're probably going to see things like line cap and 2500, 3000. This is considered a 2500 reel, but as you can see, compared to my hand, it is super small. This is considered also, I think, I don't know what this one says exactly. I think I would rate this like a 2500 to 3000 size reel, which would mean that it's just slightly bigger than that, and it's quite a bit bigger. Now, believe it or not, this and this would still be considered the same size. So when you see the reel size, it doesn't necessarily mean what you might think it would mean. You actually kind of have to see it in person to realize how big it would be. Another thing that you're going to note for, this isn't an absolute must, like you need it, but if you can get it, it'd be much better for you. If you can have a sealed, waterproof sealed reel. That means all the internals, for example, inside the spool, are already sealed up and so that way water can't get in and corrode it. Another thing you're going to want to look for that most people overlook, in fact, I overlooked when I was looking for my first few reels, is drag settings. I was looking for line capacity because, I mean, the more line, the better. Also, when looking at line, it'll give you mono. It will give you the settings for mono. Right there, let me show it to you. One second. Well, it's not picking up right now. Oh, there it goes. Those are the poundage and line amounts that you can put on, but those are only for mono. So, for example, this thing says that it can take 8 pounds of 240 yards of 8-pound mono. But that does not mean that that's the max weight line that you can put on there. I currently have braid on there, and you can go up to like 30 pounds of that, depending on... So when you look at the braid, it should show you, I think on this box, yeah, there it shows you. This is 50-pound braid, but it's at a 0.014-inch diameter, so that's 14-pound mono. Still a little bit too much for this, but, I mean, it's actually doable. And a lot of people, including myself, are probably under the assumption that you can only get whatever pound mono it says or line up to that amount, which is not at all true. Oh, and then the drag. Back to that, what I was saying, is that's the amount of drag. So when you are fighting a fish, how much they would have to pull in order to be able to strip line off the reel. So you really want, depending on what kind of fish you're going for, like here's an example. So I'm going to dial it down, and then this is just a little bit of force, and it's freely coming off. I'm going to give it 1, 2, 3, 4, and look at this. Now give it like 2 more, and it's barely coming. That is what drag force is. So the more you have, the better. Next thing you're going to look for is a company. Shakespeare, cheaper company. This is actually a Cabela's company, whoopin' stick. It's pretty decent. I'd say most things from Bass Pro and Cabela's, their company is actually like just all around pretty good. And this one is Daiwa, which, if you're into fishing, you know Daiwa is a very good company. And with that comes price tag. So if you want something for really cheap, like $6, $5, like pretty sure that South Bend spin cast one that you saw on the thumbnail, again referring back to that. I don't currently have it. It's lost in my workshop. But anyway, that one's like, I think $12 or $13 with the fishing rods, and that's like a $6.50 reel. So that's not so great. So, and this probably maybe $10. This is like a 25, and this one's like an 80. So I don't even recommend that you necessarily go for an $80 reel, because it's not going to give you that much better performance. I mean, it's super smooth, but that is one of the only like huge things that you get off of it. Another thing, so probably if I was going to recommend a reel to somebody for like a good price range for what you're going to want to pay for one fishing reel, I would recommend trying to keep it between $20 to $50. In that range, if it actually probably around $30 to $50. If you go lower than $30, you're probably not going to have a very good reel that's going to last you for very long. And if you go higher than $30, higher than $50, you very well could just be overpaying for a name or something. And like, get a good name, but don't necessarily pay more for a name. Another thing that's kind of interesting that varies from reel to reel, so this one's another one you kind of have to test out in person, is if it has this clicking ability. I don't know what to... As the drag is pulled, it'll click. That's very neat for if you're not going to be actively fishing it all the time. This one, for example, super quiet. It is still there, but you're most likely not going to hear it if it's a small fish or pretty close. And with that, I think, that we come to our last point. Second to last point, because we also have these little things. These things are very helpful to put your line on. I'm not using them right now, but for example, some reels don't have them, especially super tiny ones. Do not have them. Also, another thing that's quite important that you'll see on a lot of bait casters that are super small. It'll be like a bait caster, but it'll have like an 8-something gear ratio. The gear ratio is, let me see if I can get it, zoom in again. Focus. The gear ratio is the amount of line that is pulled in for every turn of the handle. So if you have like a 5-to-1 gear ratio, you'll get, I think it's like, I don't remember the exact terms, but that is how much line. So the higher the gear ratio, the more line you're able to take in per turn of the handle. So that's essentially what I'm trying to get across there. And I think with that is pretty much everything you need to know and really should definitely have as knowledge starting off when buying your first fishing reel. So thank you for watching. Hand Axe and Satchel signing off. Please subscribe if you enjoyed this.